Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome to Making It, presented to you by Fireside. I'm your host, Terry Woolman. My guest today is guitarist, composer, teacher, Allan Hinds. I appreciate you joining us every week, and I'd like to share my intention that inspires this podcast. Time passes quickly, and I've learned that we should do what's in our hearts and do it well without apologies or excuses. I encourage you to create your life and art in your own unique way and express your artistry with joy and with abandon. Be willing to work uncompromisingly for what you believe in. Success will have a better chance of finding you when you live your life with integrity, focus, and passion. Be selfish with your discipline and selfless in your performance, and don't forget to have fun along the way. Let me tell you about my guest, and also let me say hi to my guest. Hi, Allan.
Hey, Terry. How are you? Thanks for having me.
A native of Auburn, Alabama, Allan was exposed to blues and R&B at an early age. Moving into jazz and fusion in his teens, he attended Berklee College of Music, and shortly after moved to Los Angeles to attend Musicians Institute, where he has remained on staff to the present. Hinds has performed and are recorded with jazz and R&B greats including Hiroshima, Randy Crawford, Gino Vannelli, Patti Austin, Roberta Flack, BeBe CeCe Winan, the Crusaders, Bobby Caldwell, James Ingram, Joan Baez, and many more. Allan began recording his own music several years ago, all to critical acclaim by musicians and magazines worldwide. His albums, Fact of the Matter, Beyond It All, Falling Up, which is one of my favorite of yours, Monkeys and Slides, and Fly South are available wherever you enjoy streaming or downloading music. His new album is called The Good Fight. Allan Hinds, welcome to Making It. I'm so glad you've got your guitar in your hand. It's one of the cool things about most times when I see you interviewed, you're playing as well. Is that just part of what's fun for you?
Well, when I'm around my house, I'm kind of doing that. I walk around in my
all the time.
Pants, by the way. So
Excellent.
I used to walk around in my pajamas playing my guitar. I have my cats here.
Right.
I live in a great part of Laurel Canyon.
Yeah.
Which is also conducive to the playing of guitar because I live in, it's a pretty nice. I don't know if you can see with the phone.
Yeah.
It's just a real nice part of I have a great vibe. I have a pen outside my cats sit in.
This is great. Yeah.
But it's really beautiful up here. We have about an acre lot.
And it's quiet and peaceful up at your house. I remember I was there quite a few years back, and it always felt great. Just
there's a certain energy. I guess it's just good peace. Once you get out of driving through Los Angeles, to come back to a peaceful place is always
right.
Nice. And I've been up here for many years now. It's just a one-bedroom house, but it's all snuggled away and it's private, so it's great.
Yeah. You. I think you really kind of hit the jackpot when you found that place. Because it's been your oasis for as long as I've known you, actually.
Well, the lady who owns the big house, that's me. So, and it's pretty much next to her house, but she's never here. She's here one day out of the week. So I just kind of watch the place for her. And
right.
She likes that. That's as much of the, that's the perk for her, keeping me here at cheap rent all these years.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's tennis courts nearby your house too, right?
Well, I'm all Holland tennis courts because of course I can't really afford, or I wouldn't afford to be there. I think it's like, I don't know, something crazy to be a member of it. I play there with friends of mine who have more money than I do, and we go up there and play sometimes. But I have a little scooter, a pandemic. During the pandemic, we all kind of found things to do.
Right.
One things I did, I bought a little motorcycle, a little scooter, and I would scoot down to North Hollywood and play tennis every day until my eye happened, of course.
I don't remember. Was that a tennis injury or it just happened? Wear and tear.
It's just random, one of the perks of getting old.
Yeah, tell me about it. What you and I are the same age, Allan, so I totally get it.
No, just things kind of happen. It's just like, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Healthy. I've always played tennis, and I've always tried to keep in shape. And
right.
I drink, but not to an excess. I don't think. Mm-hmm. I start around 2 p.m. No, I'm kidding. Martini every night. I like vodka these days because it seems to be easier on my system than wine, which I used to drink. And, but besides that, I used to exercise every day somehow, or whatever.
Yeah, you've always lived pretty healthy as far as, keeping strong and.
I never think it's going to stop until it's stopped,
Right. Yeah. Well, also during COVID, didn't you start gardening?
That was kind of a joke that went around. I mean, I got some tomatoes as big as a marble.
That's it?
It was pretty embarrassing. Well, it's the soil up here isn't good. We have gophers. Actually, my kale was doing pretty good. Till one day I came out and everything was gone in my garden because they dug under the fence I built, and I kind of gave up on it. My green thumb wasn't as green as I thought it was, but it was one of my many pandemic projects. I built a catwalk for my cats to walk outside the window, and they can sit in the little pen outside because there's coyotes up here and you can't let them run loose. Usually. Right. I bought a motorcycle, like I said. I did we all kept busy somehow. I did a class with John Harrington online. We do it once a month. We had these great guys around the world, really, who would tune in and send in their submissions of them playing. We would critique them, and I always had special guests. I know a lot of people in the business. So we'd have, Steve Lukather on one week, and the next week we'd have Robin Ford and Scott Henderson and Gimbali. And so it was really fun. So yeah.
And you've also, one of the things, your intentions with doing that was creating a space where that they felt comfortable and supported. Yeah, where they could get real-time critique in a masterclass situation, but also.
Yeah, I don't know if they all felt comfortable, but they were a little bit nervous. They were a little intimidated by me and John, especially when I'd bring on somebody like Robin Ford.
Of course. Well, you and John as well. You're both master guitarists.
Well, thanks. But we'd be on the Hollywood Square Zoom call, and then all of a sudden the screen would come on and they would be Robin Ford, and the students were like, guys who were in Australia who never get a chance to talk to these guys, and they had submitted all their 2-minute versions of them playing. We'd give them a backing track to Reeling in the Years or All Blues or something, and they would submit them to me. I would put them in a playlist, and then we would have a 2-hour class at the end of every month, and they all paid a little money to join, so it was pretty cool. John and I made a little money doing that, but mostly we made them feel comfortable. I think because John and I are both, it's still, as far as I'm concerned, it's still a big work in progress. I know the title of your show is Making It, and I was thinking, God, I think everything's relative. To some people, my friends in Alabama, my family, they think I've really made it because they saw me on TV a few times.
Right.
It was actually a great story. When I first came out here, I was at Musicians Institute, and I got out and like everybody else struggling. I was playing Filipino weddings for $50. I was doing whatever I could to make some extra cash on the side, and I had made friends with Ralph Humphrey, who's a great studio drummer. He used to play with Frank Zappa. He liked me. He taught a class at MI. So he brought me to one of his legitimate studios. And I met this guy named John Gu, who turns out to be one of the biggest studio guitar players in the last 30 years in Los Angeles. One of these guys you never, the guy who's playing all the nice slide stuff on the Chevrolet commercials or whatever, the great players. And I met him, and so we hung out, and we ended up being kind of friends. But one day he called me and says, Alan, would you like to make $100? I said, sure. He goes, well, show up. I'm doing Star Search with Ed McMahon, and we record the audio in the morning, and we do the video in the afternoon. All you have to do is show up. You don't have to play. They just show up in a tuxedo and a fake air guitar. And
the sideline, right.
Pretend like you're playing behind the artist. So I just got a call from my dad the night before going, Alan, let's have a little talk. What are you going to do with your life? He wanted me to come back and, work at the mill or something. I don't know.
Sure.
So it was one of those conversations what am I doing out here? I'm just barely getting by, although I was having lots of fun. So anyway, the next day I went and did the show with Ed McMahon. There I am on the stage, and my parents back in Alabama could see me I wasn't playing at all.
Right.
But the fact that they saw me, I called up the next day and go, we are so proud of you. I go, it wasn't me. I wasn't playing. He goes, that's okay. You stick it up there. Something's just, so it was, everything's relative.
It is. And so is the title of the show, Making It, because, for me, it's about the journey. Because I know. Yeah. Because we've all, many of us who live here have ended up doing a lot of sidelining on TV shows and films where we're not really playing, but we play. I mean, we still treat it seriously. We learn the tunes and everything, but it's kind of funny to get, I remember doing some master classes, and, they were listing all of my credits, and then they said, and Terry's been on Desperate Housewives, and they all of a sudden they were interested in what I had to say because they
questions about it,
right, because they saw me pretending to play guitar on Desperate Housewives. So yeah, it's all relative. It's just
it's all part of the whole thing, I mean, I don't know. I feel lucky that I've been able to put out 6 or 7 CDs or whatever, and I have a new one coming up. It feels good, I mean, and the fact that people like it, they still. That I'm still around. I can still play the baked potato, and that's good. And I have big plans for this next CD, of course. So everything's relative.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a life journey. I'll never be really. I don't think I'll ever get comfortable, no matter where I get. I mean,
Well, don't you think that's part of being an artist, Alan? That that we're constantly setting the bar a little bit higher than what we can achieve.
Yeah, I think there's different things. I think at some point, if you haven't been affirmed enough, you kind of maybe start looking at something else to do with your life.
Sure.
I guess there's that. But I'm a firm believer that the guys who you might on the surface think are the most elementary beginner players always end up blossoming somehow in some way if they stick to it.
Yeah.
I have one example. Is one really great guitar player in Japan named Joichiro Natori. And we just did a record for him. I kind of helped him produce it. I hired all the guys from Los Angeles. But he first started off coming into my open counseling at MI, and he was always shy. He'd sit in the corner, would never play. He was just too scared. And then he blossomed. He moved back to Japan and formed his own band. And he's like a badass, like jazz, bebop, the real modern, like a Kurt Rosenwinkel jazz player. Yeah. Now he's just really shy. I don't know if he'll ever, go out and play his music. And I don't think the record, he hates the way he played on the record, so he's going to redo his guitar parts. So that's where we stand with this record. But my point is that everybody who, right when you think, oh, this guy is not really getting it, all of a sudden they impress you with something they've done, and you kind of go, oh, you do that quite well. So, it all works out.
Right. And the fact that you've also been teaching through your entire career, which many of us do, which is really important work, especially at this point of our lives. Now it's like really the time where we have life under our belt, where it's really important to continue to mentor and do master classes. But doesn't that inform your perspective on life?
Well, teaching kind of is like reverse engineering. You have to dig back inside yourself and kind of explain things that may have come naturally to me, or why do they come natural? Well, and I have to kind of figure out why they made sense to me, and that because I can't explain it to anybody else. I can't just say, "Oh, just put your fingers here and do this." I can't do that. That's not enough. I can't say, "Yes, I heard this chord." That explain that. I go, "What? That's not enough information for me to go on." So I've tried to. I used to have I always do workshops when I go on the road because I love doing them as well as they pay extra money. But I actually love sitting in front of a crowd and talking about the nuts and bolts of playing guitar. And it's kind of changed through the years. There used to be more licks, scales, licks. And lately, the last 5 years I've been doing them, it's been more about the concept of guitar being a fun instrument that you have to let your kind of inner child kind of lead at some point. There's always the point for learning scales and a little bit of theory. And a little bit of theory goes a long way. You don't have to, master the harmonic major scale anywhere. Third mode of that. You can get by with stuff you can learn probably in a matter of weeks, the mathematical part of it. And then it was nice to hear Paul McCartney talk about writing Blackbird because, the Beatles that's what I grew up on. And they, more than any other pop group, they just had really intelligent little shifts in their music that gave their music more integrity than most, and the longevity, and just the historic, monumental effect that it had on the society and everybody to this day. And Paul McCartney's in there, he goes, I was just playing around, I found these shapes on guitar, and I saw you. And he just did it from just a hands-on, having fun. My fingers going to do this, and started strumming and found the right things. He analyzed it later, if he ever analyzed it. So I try to go back and get students who think more with their ear. Think intervals. If they know that sort of major third is, they know they sure as hell can't play that on a minor chord. And that interval, just knowing that having that closeness with your instrument, and knowing where that interval is kind of the foundation of using your ear and letting the creative side blossom more than just going through scales. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Let's talk about your personal style as not just as a guitarist, but as an artist as well, because it's always, one of the biggest things as a musician is to find your own voice. If you're not just trying to be a session player, which is a very specialized skill that is not for everybody. And I know that you kind of found that in your career as well, that you were really good at it, but you just, your strength, your own personal strength was your voice, your point of view as an artist.
It kind of came, there were many times when I probably could have given up because I remember trying to be a studio musician at first. And my reading was never good. I was never disciplined enough to read chord charts. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Individual notes, I could not read those stuff. I remember seeing John Good, the same guitar player I was talking about. I saw the music he was getting ready to play and I said, holy shit. Back up the notes, it looked like, who can play that? And he said to me, I said, I could have played can play that, but the fact that whoever wrote it for the piece synced up to a video had to have it exactly like that.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
the part was easy. It was a matter of getting it, and that's the art of those guys. They can read something and make it sound like they just came up with it,
Sure.
spontaneous. But I found out, I used to beat myself up too much, thinking that I would never be a good student. My problem was I was a little too, as you can probably tell by the way I talk really fast, I throw stuff out there. I'm kind of a loose cannon sometimes with my ideas. And sometimes if I could translate them telepathically, it would be a lot easier. Sometimes I just try to blurt out too much and I stumble on I'm talking so fast, like I'm doing now.
Yeah, but you have a big brain, Alan. I mean, you're a smart guy, and you have a and you have a really interesting visual approach to guitar also, because I heard you say one time, it might have just been when we were talking, or it might have been in an interview, but that you don't look at the guitar as a bunch of different scales. You look at it as just one big fretboard.
Yeah, a lot of my workshops I talk about motif building and just taking one small idea and it becomes like a stepping stone.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of involves knowing the fretboard everywhere. And a lot of schools, places don't really, they teach, like MI teaches 5 positions,
Right.
5 patterns. And really there's just one big pattern.
Right, that's what I heard you say, one big pattern.
You just need to kind of bridge the uncommon pattern. The usual ones, we all go into our usual, these little pentatonic shapes, of course. But I remember I made a point at MI to the parts on the fretboard that were the gray areas. I was going to make sure I knew those just as well as the common ones that everybody could play. So it's always been a constant workout for me in the morning, or thought process to kind of visualize where all the intervals are. And that there's like real simple things. Like I'll have a student play me a motif he thinks is cool, and he'll go like or something like that. I said, well, do that on every note, start on every note diatonically. And then he has a problem going. And all you do is just like breaking up the fretboard in a different way, as opposed to just learning a pattern across the dots on the page. So it's an ongoing, work in progress for me also. When I wake up in the morning, I just kind of go through random syntaxes on the fretboard, that you don't normally connect. I like to find a position where I've never gone before and go, oh, this looks different, and I can do this here. Because on guitar, it's so weird, as you know, the way it's tuned. A lick down here, the same lick up here is going to sound completely different because you're playing it on different strings, different part of the fretboard. Anyway.
Well, and I just saw you just posted something on your Instagram a couple of days ago of you playing an idea that was, as you said, a little bit out of your comfort zone, but you found it interesting, and I thought it was great that you still showed it.
Well, show that I was not good at it. Yeah.
Well, actually, yes. I mean, because you are a masterful musician. You are one of the in my mind, but also in our community, you're highly respected as a guitar player, and you know that. And yeah, and it's deserved and it's earned. But the thing is, there's always, like you said, there's always more to learn. You and I both worked with the Crusaders, and and I learned that from Joe Sample also when I was working from him, that he was always there was a little bit of self-doubt, because he was always trying things that he hadn't tried before. And it kind of blew my mind. And then it just sort of showed me that that's part of the artistic journey.
And the fact that he could do it, I working with Randy Crawford, I had a lot of board tapes where I could hear it go really in my face, and he wasn't perfect.
Right.
He has days he was pretty sloppy at times, but it didn't matter because he had, so much heart and he had so much control, and he didn't care anymore. So that side wasn't affecting the way he played. He still had that kind of, childish, random, experimental side of him that always led him to just try something, whether he could do it or not, But that's one thing that, the more you stick with it, and hopefully the more affirmation you get. Because everybody, I've talked to some great players here in town who really get down on themselves. And when you get them alone, they're really quite insecure. And they feel like they haven't risen to the point where they think they should be, or somebody else's fault. It's kind of sad to see, but
what's your take on that when you hear somebody that you respect being in self-doubt?
It makes you realize they're only human, because the self-doubt is what drives you to practice more, or to do something different, or to teach you, or to force you to learn how to accept it.
Right.
that's the big thing for me. I mean, if I go a few months and I haven't had any like really cool gigs where I could really play my music or something like that, I start worrying, wow, will I ever get hired again or whatever?
Sure.
And that's tempered by the stuff that I have done, of course. So I don't know. However you feel about your playing, good or bad. It's just everything's a big cycle in life. Everything's going to come back around. You just got to like. The Wood Brothers, one of my favorite bands, and they have a song called, "Just Wait Till Tomorrow."
Mm-hmm. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, Wood Brothers, Medeski Martin Wood, bass player Chris Wood, and his brother Oliver have a band called the Wood Brothers. Now, "Give It One More Day" is the name of the song.
Mm-hmm. Give It One More Day. So take me back, Allan. You grew up in Alabama, 7 kids in your family.
Wow.
What was that like? I know that actually, your brother was supportive when you were in college and
like Hell Camp. No, I was kidding.
Did you get beat up a lot?
No, actually, we had a lot of hand-me-down clothes. So if you see old pictures of us, I'm wearing a jacket. I look like David Byrne, like my older brother gave me that shoulders out to here. No, it was great. I mean, my father drank too much. He really had a drinking problem, and he was a great guy, but he just wasn't always there for us. And he wasn't abusive at all. It was just maybe abusive in the fact that he was kind of absent a lot of the time. But there was a big space gap between my older sister and myself. So I was really close to my little brother and my little sister growing up. Really, my little brother and I were closest. And and then as the family goes on, things change, and there's some of us that are closer than other ones. But my oldest brother was a concert bassoon player.
Mm-hmm.
He went on to he was the conductor of the Montgomery Symphony Orchestra for like years and years. So I had the musical thing in my family. I always heard, some classical music, or of course Beatles. I remember sitting cross-legged when everybody else was asleep, listening to. I remember I had Otis Redding. I had the Beatles, Beatles records, and Rubber Soul just rocked my world. I remember just like listening to every nuance of that record. I wasn't even trying to translate it to guitar, which is interesting because I've kind of gone full circle where, I mean, I listen to music for pleasure now. I don't really listen to stuff just to learn a guitar lick anymore. I mean, I never did in the beginning. I mean, I didn't start playing guitar until I was like 17. And I just loved music, but it was Led Zeppelin and Beatles pretty much ruled the world for me. Stevie Wonder, of course, just all the stuff. So
that's pretty remarkable though, Allan. And I apologize for interrupting you, but just that statement, the fact that you really started playing when you were 17 and that you advanced to the level that you did is really kind of a testament to your natural talent and also your desire.
All that and a lot of luck. I mean, when I think about all the players I played with back in Alabama, there's a few of them I could name that could have done anything they wanted to do.
Right. Yeah.
And they had maybe I had a little bit more ego than they did, or I got lucky and won a scholarship to MI, so I got to come out here for free. But any of those guys could have done it. There was always, when I look back, there's something about those guys' personality where they just weren't. And maybe it's just the ego. I don't know. I always wanted to be that guy, on stage playing the solo. I wanted to be Jimmy Page or Duane Allman or BB King or Jimi Hendrix when I was a kid, And luckily I had older brothers and sisters who would bring me records. Because at the time I wasn't old enough to go out and buy a record myself. I didn't know what else. But I had a stack of records at home. I remember the color of our carpet, going to sleep, listening to our little magnetone or Magnavox, whatever it was. All the records stacked on top of each other back in the mid 60s.
But we also, do you remember this? We had great late night AM radio that just played everything. And
great late night TV. There's like rock. I was looking the other day, there's a rock concert. Don Kirshner's rock concert, I think it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And the lineup of one night on that TV show was Bonnie Raitt, Little Feat, Weather Report, and Neil Young. I was going, when does that happen anymore?
Right. It doesn't.
And the whole music scene is just different now. I mean, it's not, when you think about the 70s, I was watching that CNN special on the 90s or whatever, and I was just listening to, God, there was like so many great creative bands that we had access to. And, that's a whole conversation for another time. I know, trying to figure out why that has gone the way it has. But we were very lucky to grow up when we did.
Yeah, I would agree. We were exposed to so many genres of music and good music, melody driven, lyric driven, a lot of heart, a lot of self-taught musicians, as well as highly schooled musicians, sort of being thrown into the pit together.
Even though as a guitar player, you and I were like, we're trying to get lick that Robin Ford did or so-and-so did it through the years. We were always trying to, that's what we gravitated since we were guitar players. But really the thing that, that when I think about even my music, if you look at this, the way I write songs, it's pretty poppy. I have an intro and I have a verse, and then there's a chorus, or there's some form they're usually laid out pretty much like pop songs. I mean, I'm not as jazzy as, the rock people think I'm pretty jazzy, and the jazz guys think I'm pretty rocky. So I'm kind of stuck in the middle there.
And you're also kind of swampy. I mean, in the best of ways.
Well, I showered this morning. Swampy. No, I know. Well, I grew up in Alabama.
Right.
I was listening to a lot of.
There's a soulfulness and a greasiness to your playing as well. That's always been really interesting to me.
I was gravitated towards some country, but mostly like blues and like New Orleans type stuff. I mean, I was a huge Little Feat fan, Alan Toussaint. Just every now and then a song, like a Taj Mahal song, would just hit me. I was like, whoa, that feels, and the initial thing that got me is not because it was a fast guitar lick. It was that it felt good. It automatically put you in a mood. And that's what I try to do with my music. I try to, the first few measures, I want to make sure the listener kind of gets the idea of what it's all about. Because to me, you're transmitting not only something you can hear and write down and transcribe, you're kind of putting out there a vibe and a feeling that puts people in a certain mood when they first hear it,
By the way, now's a really good time for us to mention that people can go to your Spotify page and subscribe, and also to your Instagram page and Facebook.com/Allan Hinds Guitarist to hear your music and be able to, or if they want to study with you. You're still doing these master classes as well, correct?
Not the master classes. I do. I have Patreons.
Okay,
which
great.
help a lot every month, and I do a master class for a certain tier. And that's, it's funny because I really didn't know what I was doing when I started my Patreon account. So I started it off like at the lowest amount of money you can give. I felt guilty charging anymore. So I give 4 or 5 tips through a month, at least once a week and sometimes more.
Yeah.
Little mini lessons. And there's things that I just kind of stumble on. And I was at a party about a month ago. My friend's son, there's about 100 people there at this party. And my friend's son was walking around going, "Hey, Jill, guess how much Allan charges for his Patreon page?" "No, how much?" And he go, $5. She goes, $5? Who does that? So it became like a joke where every time he'd say that. And I just figured, we get enough people, if 1 or 2 drop out, or it's not going to affect it that much. I mean, I feel funny.
It sustains.
Other than that. But anyway, I have a Patreon thing, and we do a masterclass at the end of every month with a certain tier. And I, answer questions. Sometimes I have a guest with me, like John Harrington or somebody will come on there. My stuff's out there, and my new CD is not out yet. That's where we kind of had a feeling when I saw you again about a month ago. I gave you a copy of it, and that was going to be it. But we've decided to put a vocal song in there. Yeah, and so we're waiting for a couple artists to maybe record their vocals on it, which they hope will make it a little more commercial.
Well, the album is fantastic. I've really been enjoying it. I just played it the first time I listened to it 3 times in a row, which was kind of cool. I really enjoyed it. But the thing is, I love the idea that you're going to wait and add these vocals as well. I do. I think even, for business reasons, it's cool, but also I think musically it's still going to enhance and bring it up one more level.
Well, when I play the baked potato, I usually bring up Max San Luis to sing at the end of the show because, I mean, even myself, I tire of all instrumental music all the time too. I mean, I like it. So I've always, so bringing Max San is always like I can tell everybody in the club gets excited when she walks up there on stage, and so I mean, in my music that I really listen to, I know some guitar players who all they listen to growing up with Coltrane and Dexter Gordon and whoever, and it's like I'm Joni Mitchell, Stevie Wonder, and
you and me both, yeah.
Kind of stuff really hits my.
And that doesn't surprise me.
I have a goal in my life. It's like to be able to actually sing one day, to be able to write a song and sing it and do that complete process, because that's got to be a good feeling.
I think that's doable, and because we have friends who are great vocal coaches and great singers that could guide you. I started taking voice lessons recently, like right before COVID, actually. Yeah, for the same reason. To be able to also do that, to be a part of that, and you could do it too. I encourage you to. I think it'd be great.
I sing a little bit in our band back in
Yeah,
Alabama. And I used to sing about 6 songs a set.
you did. Yeah,
And it was, whatever. It was like, I seemed to manage it then, but I was pretty worked up in the moment. We were young and
yeah.
Anyway.
And also, you and I would imagine your experience is the same. We worked with a lot of incredible singers, so I kind of backed away pretty quickly when I started working with world-class singers and saying, well, that's not how I'm going to be able to do it, so I guess I shouldn't. But I think that was a wrong decision. I think it's good to just continue to grow in all levels.
The only reason I'm not playing with more singers now, Randy's, her health is bad. But I just found that after, like, when I was working with Bobby Caldwell and Gino, I loved their music up to a point. And then after about a year of being with them, I found myself getting bored. I mean, looking back on it, I was bored. So I was either trying new stuff that didn't fit the song, or I realized it wasn't my music. I wasn't the guy to do that. I either left or got fired. I mean, everybody kind of realized, I wasn't into it anymore. So my longest stint was Randy Crawford. I was with her for 15 years, and we did a lot of stuff over in Europe. And it's too bad she's not more famous. Really kind of a shy person. She's kind of older and a little bit sick these days, but
right.
She was a great artist, and on her good days, nobody sang as good as Randy Crawford. So,
I just lost your audio. Your audio dropped out. There it is.
At some point, I just started doing my own thing, and I remember I had these ideas, and when I put it together and finally got a CD together, the first person I gave it to was Hiram.
Is who?
Hiram Bullock.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
The NAMM show's happening then, and I just happened to see him. I said, shit, I'm going to give my CD out to some people at the NAMM show. And I walk in the front, I see Hiram, and we knew each other a little bit from Randy. I was on the road with Randy Crawford. We do all these jazz festivals over in Europe, Montreux and Cape Town Jazz Festival, North Sea Jazz Festival. And I used to see him all the time. So we used to hang, being guitar players. We used to hang out a little bit out backstage. And so I approached him, I said, hey, Hiram, I said, check it out. And he was so nice. I mean, it could have gone so bad. But he was back to New York with him, and he wrote me his email where he had every song dissected and what he liked about every part. And it was so nice. He was just totally complimentary. So I had a big place in my heart for him after that, because that was,
yeah,
not because of somebody giving me, compliments, but it just gave me confidence that my stuff didn't suck.
Of course.
It is what it is. The first album, I think, has some great compositions on it. I wish I would have recorded it a little bit better, but I was at the mercy of my whatever computer I was, my Atari.
Right. Wow. Not even the first Apple Mac. Right.
Yeah, I don't know how he did it. I remember actually taking loops off a CD, like a drum loop of 4 measures, and splicing it, and putting it together for a song. I didn't have the money to pay a real drummer.
Right. So let's get personal. Can we talk about your daughter, Catherine?
Sure.
And I want to lead with this. Your daughter, she passed away when she was 34 years old, which was in 2006, I believe. And in her obituary, included in the other things about her life, it said, "In lieu of flowers, do not vote for Donald Trump."
Oh, that was back then when Trump was running, and everybody was
yeah.
We couldn't believe that he would even have a chance. But living down south, my family really knew that he had a chance. And I had my friends who I know support Trump. They know not to even bring it up with me. And I think a lot of things happened in that year. It was her death, the death of her mother. Donald Trump got elected. It was a bad year for me. I remember I was over in Japan when I heard a lot of this news. When I heard the news about my ex-wife, as well as I heard the news about about Donald Trump. And my daughter died earlier in the year. And so, yeah, a therapist later on said, that maybe I was focusing my ire on Trump because I had lost my daughter, which might have been true. But till this day, I still don't like what he's done to. I don't mind anybody being conservative. I grew up in Alabama, hunting, and I love Southeastern football, and I'm pretty much Southern in some ways, and conservative in some ways, I'm sure, but what he does is just criminal. And I just don't, it drives me crazy that somebody can get away with it so much. And And if somebody wants to fight me about it, which people have threatened me on Facebook, with like really horrible things, it's like, dude, just talk to me about it, And I've actually not converted, but I've stayed friends with some guys who totally believe that they love Trump and everything he was doing with the border, and they thought the world was great then. But I saw all these other things because I read the news a lot, and I was how he was, firing anybody who could hold him accountable, and I was seeing parallels to other governments that had gone wrong, and I watched too much liberal media. I mean, I probably, and I tried to cut back on that, but if you read enough, you realize that if there's 16 news organizations saying something, and there's one news organization saying something else, it's not really hard to choose which one is probably more factual than the other one. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, but I don't want to get into that too much. But losing my daughter was another part of life, and you realize, the one thing that helped me realize was like having friends, really close friends, who kind of kept me from getting too wobbly.
Right.
And they kind of came through with love in their own ways, and also having Facebook, believe it or not, Facebook. I had a lot of old friends who wrote me and said, Alan, you remember me? We used to be friends back in college. He goes, this one girl told me she lost both of her daughters in a car wreck. Mm-hmm. So things like that, you kind of go, I'm not the only person. So I'm not going to go, woe is me too much, because, everybody's got their own stories of losses like that. But, it made me think about a lot of things, about being a better person, about how I could have done this or that better, but not beat yourself up. Just learn from it and learn. Sometimes we just take a lot of things for granted.
Right.
And I kind of took for granted that she would always be around, and she's not. And it's like my eye. I never thought for a second I was ever going to be blind in one eye, and all of a sudden it's gone. So life does that to you. It
sure does.
Dance that we do with, and you never know what's going to happen. So yeah, it was real sad, but I have so many other people who had the same or worse. So
right. Well, I remember reaching out to you. I mean, our hearts broke for you. The sadness of losing your child.
Yeah.
You mentioned therapy, and that's been good for you, right?
Yeah, it was for a while.
For tools to move through it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, reading books, tools.
Right.
Mostly friends. I have really good friends.
Yeah, right.
Anything. And I have friends that I'll have forever. They're just like, Brian Simpson was one of my closest friends, who's a great keyboard player.
Yeah.
Is like, we just, I can not talk to him for 6 months. It's like we talked yesterday. Mm-hmm. It's those kind of friends, my friend Peter Hastings, Nikki, my friend Debbie Wells. I have people that there's never any question where either of us are coming from. They don't, they say something weird. I know that's either a slip of the tongue, or they didn't mean it, or they're sarcastic. Mm-hmm. And we don't know them well. Like, good examples, like when you text somebody and they take it completely the wrong way.
Sure.
That's the whole thing. And there's also a disconnect between people, whether they're talking to each other face to face. Sometimes people just don't understand the other person that well. But that's what I mean. These people were like right there. And, and then COVID hit. It's been a weird few years.
You think? Yeah, it really has. But you, in some ways, prospered through COVID. You used the time well.
Actually, I prospered. I mean, because I did this class with John Harrington, and then I did a lot of lessons. I was doing lessons. If somebody didn't have money, I'd give them a lesson. Some guys in Brazil I knew didn't have any money, and I only charged like $50 an hour. Yeah. But most of them were like $100 an hour, and I did like 5 or 6 a day. And I was pretty booked up. So everybody was stuck in their man caves, and everybody had a little money, and everybody was, kind of, we were all saving a little money because nobody was going out. And
right, nobody was right. No dinners out, no movies, no concerts.
I mean, I think my teaching skills got better. I certainly learned Zoom a lot better.
Right.
And you have to make it work. My tennis game got better.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I play tennis every morning before I do lessons. So yeah, I mean, that we roll with the punches, right?
Yes, we do. So. By the way, Dr. Lisa, now would be a good time if anybody in our audience would like to get involved in the conversation, make a comment or question.
Well, I see some folks down here, and I'm going to just see if Dee or Demetrius, William, anybody has any questions for Alan. But I have one when you get to that point, but I'm going to let you continue.
Okay. So while people are getting up on stage to join our conversation, and we invite you to do so, that's the beauty of this technology. Let's talk about some of the artists that you've worked with, and just like takeaway. You mentioned Randy Crawford and Gino, but let me just mention a couple of them, and just a single statement about what was maybe the coolest thing that you got from the experience of working with them? Roberta Flack.
Well, I heard other people say that she was really snobby, and I did this thing called Colors of Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Have like, it was the first few years of that. And the only reason I quit that was because Randy had more gigs. But it was they would take 4 artists that maybe were not in the prime of their career, and we would work up their hits and learn Christmas songs.
Yeah, like Peebo Bryson, Melissa Manchester, some great artists.
Peebo Bryson, Jeffrey Osborne.
Jeff, right? Yeah.
God, who else? Anyway, Roberta was on there, and she took a liking to me and the drummer Lance Lee. Do you know Lance Lee?
I love Lance. Yes, he's a blast. He's been in our show. Yeah, he was a great guest. Yeah, so I mean, what I took from her is like, well, there's one scene. She was so sweet, and I remember we were playing this one song. She was at the acoustic piano. She goes, Alan, she goes, can you give me a little color? And I think she meant voicings. Instead of playing an A minor, like that, she wanted to hear like little voices and stuff. Or maybe she meant a chorus. So I was going to turn on a chorus pedal, and I remember I had a chorus in my bag that I wasn't using for any of the other songs. So then they started the song, and I just kind of kept playing and figured I'll just do something a little different. And I didn't do anything different. It was exactly the same. She stopped and goes, "Thanks, honey. That was so much better." It was one of those moments, it's cute. Right.
She used to always find us down in the lobbies of the hotels at breakfast, and she'd always come and sit with us. And she was always real sweet. And I just remember her being just super gentle and kind, and the people around her were all wonderful. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's great. Great stories. Natalie Cole.
She wasn't all high on herself or anything.
Right.
Well, I just subbed for a few weeks for Michael Hakes. Remember Michael Hakes?
I do. Yeah.
And he was doing Engelbert Humperdinck or something, making more money. For her, she was completely like one of the girls. I remember I'm one of the girls. We were sitting around the table, and she was with what's that girl's name? She died of cancer. She was
one of the singers?
Yeah, she was one of the background singers for Nelly for a year. And I'm spacing out here. Who's the drummer who was married to Sandy? Sandy. I'm spacing out.
You got me.
Sandy
I'm not sure.
Simmons, the singer.
Sandy Simmons?
Yeah, and her husband. He played with the Crusaders for a while too.
I don't remember who Sandy's married to.
Anyway, Julie Delgado.
Oh, Julie, of course.
Right. But she was, we were all sitting around the table for some reason, and Natalie, they were just making fun about, she was like one of the gang.
She always had cool women around her too, like Kat Adams and Janelle Sandler, and great singers and good people.
Totally. And when I saw her, she had just getting ready to do the Unforgettable album. So it was before doing all the old hits. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was kind of a different person. She got kind of thrust into a different light, and I had other people who worked with her later on and said she was much different. But I mean, I just remember her being like, sit at the table. A lot of artists won't sit with a band at tables and stuff.
Sure.
She was like right there with us, and she was clowning around with all the girls, making all these jokes and stuff. It was really fun. Sandy Simmons, I can't believe I can't remember her husband's name. Wears glasses, drummer, played with the Crusaders. God dang it.
Yeah, I don't remember either. James Ingram.
He was part of the Colors of Christmas. Once again, he was just like, these are people who were like, besides being great singers and artists, they were like just really down to earth. He just like.
Yeah, James was sweet.
Yeah, he's just like, it was like there was no, with Gino Vannelli, there's a little bit of a distance between us, a little bit, because he was kind of the star.
Right.
You couldn't really talk to him because he'd rest his voice before the show. And, James was one of the kind of guys who would sit down with us and go, look at that girl, she's cute, or whatever. He was just like a guy. He's like hanging out with us.
Right. James told me one time when we were working together, he said, I'm not the best singer in my family. And, and I said, who is? And he goes, it's actually my brother that nobody's ever heard about. He's a minister. He's a pastor. And he sings circles around the rest of us.
Wow.
Because I thought he was talking about Philip Ingram, who's a great session singer as well. But he said, no, not Philip. Philip's great, but no, our other brother. Yeah. Yeah, I had never known that. Let me ask you one other, because we both have worked with this artist as well. I'm not sure what you did with her, but Joan Baez.
Oh, I did. I never met her. I played on her record.
Oh, you played on one of her records?
Yeah, her manager also manages Max and Lewis, who I played with.
Alan.
Hired me to do some kind of vibey, once again, they said, can you do that Steve Lukather, Michael Landau thing? Mm-hmm. It was one of those you and I probably both got for the last 30 years because those guys are so great. But yeah, just a song that she did, and she wrote me a little note and said, thanks and everything. But I never met her. I knew her manager at the time, Alan Abrahams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you rolled your eyes when you said, can you make like play like Mike Landau, Steve Lukather, and so we've both been on the receiving end of that our whole careers. Can you make it sound more like this or that? But like, what's your take on that? Like, how do you maneuver through that?
Well, actually, I kind of understood because it was the thing that I aspired to do anyway. I mean,
right.
Like anybody, and I don't not encourage people to do this, but we used to go through and buy the same equipment they had because we wanted to sound like them.
I did. Yeah.
Cast it with a Demeter preamp in it, rolled to 0 to where it made everything sparkly, and a tri-stereo chorus.
Yeah.
Big rack this big with lexicons and all sorts of rack-mounted instruments. I mean, you just kind of had to have that to compete. I figured nobody's going to hire me unless I had this stuff. And so that was kind of but besides that, it was interesting learning their parts. So studying them.
Isn't it? Yeah. I've always enjoyed that, actually.
Today, I mean, when somebody says, can you do a Landau thing? I go, oh, you mean this? And what they mean is like, turn on a chorus pedal and use your volume pedal. Go. They kind of swoopy, kind of spacey.
Right.
If I had a wang bar on the guitar, you'd get it better. But yeah. So I know, and Steve Lukather, I know exactly what sound they were getting because I knew what equipment they used.
Yeah, so it's good information. Yeah,
so that's nothing wrong with that. And whenever I talk to Steve, because Steve's kind of a neighbor of mine, and he always says, "Man, you're so bad." And I said, well, yeah, right, Steve. Well, nobody ever came to you and said, "Hey, give me that Allan Hinds thing."
But yeah. Luke does speak highly of you. I mean, in interviews, he's listed you as one of his favorite guitar players, which is very kind.
What does that music mean?
I think, what does that mean, Dr. Lisa?
I don't know. It looked like Waitebot weighed in for just a moment.
Oh, that's funny.
Sure what happened?
And now a message from our sponsors.
Right.
That's right. I thought Allan was getting ready to do a song.
Well, you never know. Well, Lisa, no, go ahead. Finish that song. Come on, brother.
There's no sound there.
Lisa, what do you have to say about this conversation?
I was looking to see if somebody else had a question. I think Michael did. Let me just double check here. I'm going to ask him. Michael, did you have a question for Allan? Maybe not.
Okay. Feel free to join us if you do.
I do have a question for Allan. Okay, so I wanted to go back to the teaching, being an instructor, because it's been a long time, and I'm just curious to know, what do you enjoy most about it, one? And have you been surprised at things that you've learned as an instructor?
Well, I guess the thing I like about it the most is when a student gets something. Mm-hmm. That's like really a rewarding feeling when I feel like I've opened up a gate. Because when I was in music school, it took me like 10 times being explained what a mode was until I kind of got it. And when I finally did, I was like, whoa, just because somebody had a certain twist of a phrase or knew how to present it a little bit differently. So when I can tell the student is into it and they've made progress, or they thank me later for something because I helped them through, that's the biggest feeling of accomplishment. But I'd be lying if I didn't say there wasn't a selfish aspect of it too, where I'm trying to present it, make the most sense I can. So I'm kind of, like I said before, it's kind of like reinventing, reverse engineering, where I'm having to dig and I say, well, why do I play that scale over that chord? Or why do I play that voicing here? Or how did I come up with that part of the song? So besides being like introspective and learning a lot about yourself, it's a feeling of accomplishment when the student has gotten it. And the $100 they pay me for the cash thing, that's really rewarding.
Yeah. No, it is.
Hey, my grandfather used to say the good thing about money is it's good whenever you get it.
No, the money, actually, I've given people free lessons who just didn't have any money. It's not, I was making a joke, but yeah. No,
well, Osnoy was doing that during COVID too. There were a couple, he let people know if you can't afford it, I'll do my best to make the time for you.
Okay, we do have a question from D. Wells. D. Wells, can you hear us? If you take your mic off of mute down at the bottom, you'll be able to
hear the voice.
Yeah, we're going to hear you.
Dr. Wells.
D, are you there?
He's up here, but he's got to hit that microphone down the bottom to unmute.
I think it's a she.
Oh, she. Sorry about that.
I think it was the same person I'm thinking of.
Let me see. I don't think I can unmute whoever it is.
D, are you there?
Debbie? She's a teacher friend of mine in Pennsylvania.
Okay. I don't know. She might not be seeing. So if you look down at the bottom of your phone, you're going to see a microphone. Did they just take themselves off? I think so.
She's trying to walk back in. She's not shy.
Okay, let me try. I'm going to try again and do another invite to speak.
Great. Yeah, we want to hear what you have to say, Debbie.
Mistake there.
There you are.
So, yes. Hey,
Hi.
tell me about that guitar you're holding.
Oh, this guitar that I'm holding?
Yes.
Oh, well, I'm kind of scared to say because it says Gibson on it, but it's not a Gibson. And I might get sued for it, but I'm not trying to sell it. In one of my projects, I mean, I've always tinkered with guitars a lot. How are you, Debbie, by the way? Nice to hear from you.
Hi.
So I mean, I tinker. I mean, I'm always taking guitars apart and putting them together. And some of them I've realized I did a YouTube series called What Makes This Guitar Great and Affordable, because it doesn't always have to cost you an arm and a leg to get a great sounding guitar. It's just wood, for Christ's sake. And a lot of the most expensive ones they put together, it's like this rich, koa wood, babinga wood or whatever. And it's like, but does it sound good? Sometimes I have some guitars here that I literally have. This guitar was stripped down a couple pieces of wood, basically. They had the neck glued to the body, and that's all it was. And a guy had like broken off a piece of metal in the bridge stem, little piece here, and so he sold on eBay for $200. Seeing out the East Coast. So I saw that it had potential and bought it, and I painted it. It's supposed to be a little bit more red. I put a layer of black under the red, so it's kind of a cherry red. Pickups here, and I had all the parts, and I ordered a Gibson veneer and put the Gibson thing on here, so you would never know it was not a real Gibson. And it sounds as good as any of my Gibsons. They cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So that's what this guitar is. But thank you for asking. It's a little project, and I have some original stuff too that's worth a lot of money, because I like a lot of guitars. I don't know if you can see my place, but there's a lot of guitars.
Yeah, we can see some in the background.
Yeah, and there's like stuff here and stuff over hanging up here and stuff. So it's kind of part of my life, of course.
Of course.
But I like tinkering with them. I like taking them apart and seeing what makes them tick. Go under the hood. And
when you were a kid, did you build models and things like that too? Were you always like putting things together and taking things apart?
And the feeling of and I'm very short on patience. I mean, a lot of times I try to do things fast and I'd put too much glue on something or paint it wrong, or I wouldn't let it dry. You get my fingerprint in the car. But in the same way with guitar, I was pretty impatient for many years, but now I've learned how to back up, and I've got a nice work area where I can solder, and I do things a lot more right than I used to anyway.
Yeah.
So this one came out great. I painted it dark brown on the back, which I love. It's a nice look. I was trying to kind of replicate the George Harrison Lucy guitar, if you know what that is. That's the guitar that Eric Clapton gave George Harrison. That he played as my guitar gently weeps. Famous solos playing that. And this guitar got stolen in Hollywood, ended up in Mexico, and George Harrison with Norm's Rare Guitar went down and got it back. It's a long story, but it's on YouTube, the whole story.
Yeah.
Lucy, the red guitar that played in the Get Back series on Paramount, the Get Back Beatles thing. The whole guitar is using that whole time, that same red guitar. So I was trying to make that, but it came a little too dark. But
this one's always sounded great. I've heard you play it live before, and it's really consistent.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. We're playing this weekend actually at the Baked Potato.
What night?
Saturday.
Great. So anybody who's in town, go get your tickets now. I saw you recently at the Baked Potato. It was a blast, and it was pretty full. And kind of a little odd to be around so many people. I still have the heebie-jeebies a little bit, from COVID and everything, but it was so worth it to come to the show and be there. It was just a great night.
Yeah, we had a good night that night.
Yeah.
It'll be just as good this time, I'm sure.
Yeah, it always is. It always is. Let's talk about endorsements for a minute. We both work with exotic guitars and effects, and I know that we've had deals with companies over the years. What's your philosophy about endorsements?
I remember Bogner gave me a bunch of stuff one time, and I never used it. It's about a year. I sold one of them, and they asked for it back, and it was a little embarrassing. I just fessed up to him. I didn't try to lie or anything. I said, "Guys, you know what? my soul, and he kind of forgave me. But I realized that's a really rude thing for me to do. And one time, this guy in Japan gave me a nice custom shop Les Paul, but it just never did it for me. Right. And I asked him. I thought I should ask him first. And so I wrote him. I said, "Hey, would it be okay if I sold this guitar to get something else I wanted to get?" And he was so offended. So I sent the guitar back to him. But so I don't know. Yeah. I realized it's a gift, and it depends on the company, of course. But now I won't use something unless I really like it. Andy Fuchs sent me a bunch of Fuchs amps, and it just didn't work with my pedals. I don't know why. He'd sent me like 4 amps, and I had to send them back. They just didn't work. So I won't use something unless I really like it. I have a deal with Tascam. They just sent me a Porta. I almost said Porta Potty. They sent me a Porta recorder.
Porta Studio. They still make those. Yeah.
Handmade, looks like a walkie-talkie, but it has 2 microphones on top. And I'm planning on getting one of the singers, but I don't want to mention it yet, that are going to play on the Ode to Billy Joe. Gino's going to do a version of it, and also I'm going to try and get this other singer to do it for me. I'm going to discreetly slip into her house and record her when she's least expecting it. But anyway, so endorsements, yeah. So Tascam, I'm going to do a video for them. They sent me some CD players, some headphones, some things. I mean, Tascam kind of appeals to like kind of not really super high end stuff, and so I couldn't use a lot of their stuff.
Right.
But the CD player, is cool, and the headphones actually headphones are like amps to me. They just sound different. Sometimes they just work better than other headphones. It's not really if it's expensive or cheap. It's like it's just a different thing. It's a different monitoring experience. Right. It's like I have 2 sets of monitors here in my studio because one of these 2 little cheap ones, because that's how most people are going to listen to this stuff. So you're always going to run it through that. And they sent me this thing. So, endorsements are wonderful. Had some run with people who thought I didn't use their stuff enough.
Sure.
Whatever.
What was the collaboration experience like developing a custom pedal, overdrive pedals with Exotic?
Well,
did you enjoy that experience?
Yeah, sure. They knew what I liked.
Right.
So that pedal, they just kind of spiced it up a little bit. I put an extra control on there for some tone, and they said, "What's your favorite color?" I said, "Blue." Okay.
Yeah.
But that was pretty fun, and they paid me like a percentage of the sales for a while there, or contracted for a certain amount of time, and then after a certain amount of time, they took my initials off of it, and just sold it as its own thing.
Yeah.
Every company does something different. I mean, I haven't got that really big endorsement yet from Fender or who else is there? Right? Yeah. Yet, but
who would that be? Who would your dream endorsement be right now?
I don't know. I kind of got everything I need, but I like lately. I've been going through an acoustic guitar phase, so I'd like to. And I used to have a really nice old Collins guitar.
Oh yeah,
they're great, and I'd like to get another thing with them, but I've never really pursued it. I mean, only unless I was doing a tour where I could really had something to offer them.
The visibility, right?
Would I ask myself into an endorsement? But usually people like that. The red plate amps I used were given to me by the guys Red Plate because my tone fits these amps, and so I'm on their webpage now. So it helps everybody. Hopefully, it helps them sell some. A lot of my friends write me and say, "What are you using for your lessons?" And I go, "Well, this," and they, of course, immediately contact the company. So.
Well, it's a relationship. Yeah. I mean, everybody's supposed to benefit. We benefit from their technology and their knowledge and their support, and they benefit from us talking about it.
I almost went down that route of somebody gave me that amp and I sold it. And I was like, oh, fuck. But at least I was honest about it. I would never do that. If somebody gave me a couple guitars, I would never I'd ask them first or offer for them to have it back before I would do anything with it. Now, I learned that because you can burn them. I wasn't really looking at it from their perspective.
Well, live and learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Before I get to my closing questions, I wanted to ask you, where do you find inspiration? What inspires you in art and also in life?
I go back and listen to what originally got me into music. I mean, there's not many new guitar players that I really find interesting. I mean, and that includes myself. I'll go and I'll listen to like an old something that's half nostalgic, half just a great song, and it's almost like when I try to sleep at night, because I have a hard time sleeping sometimes. I just try to do a mental thing where I just remember a really calm part of my life because it brings back those feelings. So it's the same with some music I listen to, like an old Led Zeppelin or Joni Mitchell or an old Beatles song, and that gets me inspired again to actually write and play. Sometimes taking time off works a lot. Sometimes a lot of times my practicing here at home, I'm actually watching TV while I'm practicing. So that's just a physical exercise. That has nothing to do with the connection between music and my guitar. I'm just kind of running the patterns. And that's just to keep dexterity for when I play a gig.
Right.
Writing stuff keeps me on my toes. And there's a process there where it can be kind of like, oh, this is nothing. You have to push yourself to make a complete song form. And then it really becomes this paper mache sculpture that you're just putting little pieces on and making it into something that it wasn't before. But what inspires me is the feeling of excitement about getting a song done. That is me. What's the word I'm looking for? The satisfaction you get from finishing a song or having a good night. And as far as having good nights live or being ready for that, nobody can predict if it's going to be a good night or a bad night. Sure. I've had great nights when I was totally been jet lagged or been sick, or when I've been feeling great, and you never know what's going to make you a good night. So I try not to even think about that anymore. Mm-hmm. There's nothing you can do. Getting extra sleep, getting no sleep, doing 2 martinis as opposed to 3 martinis, none of that's going to help you. A good night just happens when it happens,
Right. Yeah, it's so interesting about music. There's a lot of technique and sweat, equity put into it, but there's still the great unknown. You never know. You just never know, to what level you're going to be able to dive in collectively, because it's a collaboration as well, and it's a collaboration with the audience. That's part of the energetic exchange as well. But I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, of course. And you're talking about the connection between audience. And I remember I subbed for a class at Musicians Institute last week, and this one student was playing. He's playing okay, but he kept going, kind of looking down. He make a mistake, and he's shaking his head like, "Oh, no, I suck." And so I told him, I said, there's a thing when you're playing. What I try to do is I try to slow down, play less, and look at the audience. Making eye contact with an audience that you're talking to will bring you out of that little bubble, that box that, when you get painted into a corner and you close up. The simple idea of just making contact and feeling comfortable with people who are listening to what you're doing, that works wonders to me. It's like a cure. So I don't know what side of my brain is doing that, but whatever.
That makes sense. Yeah. Well, it's about the connection. You are connecting with your musicians. You have a wonderful band. You guys are friends. That love of your friendship comes through in the music. There's a joy in that, and the audience vibes on that too.
Yeah, they're definitely not doing it for the money.
Yeah. Boy, we could do an hour on that.
Right, exactly. And they're still managing to eat.
Right. Hey, Allan, what's changed about your perspective in life as you've gotten older?
Well, it's kind of a weird combination of some things you've got to take more serious and some things you don't. Mm-hmm. It's this is a weird thing, isn't it? I don't know. Well, as far as guitar playing goes, the thing that turns me on is somebody who can write a good song and make it emotive, that can stir your feelings with one little twist of a chord change or one little melody shift. That there's something magical there, and I'm not sure. And it's not any relation with anything. A degree of difficulty at all. It's something else magical. Actually, I did a workshop a while back, and I was saying, if I were a teacher, I'd give you a project to write me a song that has 3 chords in it that means something, that's not corny.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
And it's really hard to do.
Challenge.
You learn a little theory, and that there's 2/5 and subs, 2, and maybe this progression with these tritone substitutions. Yeah, that's for an academic thing. But really, I think the magic is there, whether it's a simple blues song or whether it's a complicated song. I'm not for the same reason you can't throw out something easy, you can't throw out something hard. If it connects with people, it connects with people. Pat Metheny's stuff was pretty deep, and it was totally emotive and connected with a million people who weren't even musicians. And that's really, to me, that's what I found value over the years more than I used to. Is I'm not just trying to please Scott Harrison or some other fusion friend of mine. I'm trying to please. I get as much pleasure out of seeing somebody who doesn't know anything about music, get into something that I've written or played
and know the names of your songs. That's the best, when a non-musician in your audience, comes up and refers to something that you wrote, and they're not a musician, they're a banker.
I get a lot of emails where people say, "Hey, I'm not even a guitar player, but your song is. I just want to let you know that these songs are." This guy just gave me a guitar last month. It's on the wall behind me. This big Resophonic guitar. That one.
Oh, beautiful!
It's called a Mule, and it's a really high-end tricone, like a dobro kind of thing.
Yeah.
This guy, I guess he's a Patreon of mine. I didn't know, because I have like about 80 Patreons. And he just said, "Look, your music has meant so much to me, and I bought this guitar thinking I'd play it more, and I'm not, and I just want to give it to you." And so he flew out with his wife to visit a friend in Santa Barbara and gave me the guitar a couple months ago. It was like the night. It came right at a great time, and I used it for this version of "Ode to Billy Joe."
Yeah.
I play a lot of slide, being from Alabama, I guess. But so that's, I connected with somebody who doesn't even play guitar. He's like an insurance salesman or something.
That's fantastic.
That kind of feels good. But something has changed. Yeah, I've learned. I'm better with people than I was when I was 20 or 30 years old, because I was so captivated, just kind of wondering how I felt about things. The same. I wasn't thinking about what other people's feelings. So I've definitely grown in that respect. I try not to blurt out everything I feel all the time. Sometimes it's good. Maybe in music it's good just to because you're improvising. That's kind of cool. And amongst friends, when you don't have to worry about, like I was talking about before, I can throw stuff out and not worry about if it knocks over the the vase on the whatever I say. And so I don't know. I guess I learned to appreciate. Like we get older, you gotta learn how to appreciate the simple things.
Well, sure, and I mean that's one of the things we've both experienced, loss in our lives, and that kind of changes priorities.
Yeah,
or it's supposed to. I mean, if you're paying attention to life, yeah.
Learning process, that's for sure.
No, absolutely.
Hopefully, I become a better person as life has gotten older. I don't know. I'll get back to you on that question.
Well, okay. But I think you have. We've known each other for years, and you're more accessible now. I mean, there's. I think the man that you've grown into is pretty exquisite, pretty cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. So hold your course, brother, because it's I mean we're all doing the best we can.
Right.
To be good people.
Yeah, I said hopefully that everybody goes through that. Hopefully everybody changes for the better. We hope.
Yeah. So last thing before closing questions, and then I'll give you final thoughts. Tell everybody about The Good Fight, the new album.
Well, yeah, The Good Fight. The name comes from doing the right thing. I think it's a biblical reference to it, and it's just in life. And there's a TV show too. I found out after I called me. But anyway, I didn't name it because it was a TV show called Good Life.
No, I didn't think so.
But no, it became. I remember I have a friend who works for a federal judge in Boston, and she's probably one of my best friends, and we've known each other since we were 14, and we still talk. And she was when Trump first got elected. Not to bring politics into it too much, but we were just kind of horrified because we knew he had no ethics or rule, or he doesn't even have a dog, whatever. So
right.
We were both just talking, and she would. She goes, "Allan, I guess we just got to put up the good fight." So she would send me stuff during those 4 years, and she couldn't post them herself because she worked for a federal judge.
Oh, right.
Couldn't post them. She'd send them to me. Of course, I could get thrown in jail, Facebook jail. So I took
which I consider an honor. We have a few friends like yourself who have taken heat on Facebook, but you're speaking the truth.
Well, and that's another thing you learn too, is that it's just an opinion. I have some great friends who, for some reason, we feel completely different about this stuff.
Right.
I mean, I think they can't hold up to a real debate when it comes to facts, but that's okay.
But you still love them. They're your friends, and everybody gets to have their point of view.
Love them? I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
They don't make it easy.
No, but I respect everybody's opinion, no matter how wrong they may be.
Well, I'm looking forward to the new album being completed and released.
We recorded it before COVID, and I have a financial backer. The guy, he's the CEO of AEG, a big promotional company, and he used to come out and see me play the baked potato. And I would always see this one group of business guys sitting at this one table, and they always had their martinis and dressed really to the hilt. And then I found out it was this guy Jay Marciano. So he put a lot of money behind me. We recorded this record, and went into East West Studios for 4 days, locked it down, and everything came out great. So then but when COVID hit, there was no reason to release a record because he said, you're not going to make any money unless you can tour.
Right.
So I said, okay. So we didn't release it, and we sat on it. I had a chance to rework some guitar solos and remix it. And now we're adding a final song. I thought it was going to come out by now, but because everything's kind of opened up, but we're waiting on this Ode to Billy Joe. We're going to do another version of this song.
Yeah.
So
with your own twist on the song, which is great.
And in the last couple of months, I signed a record deal with SRG for the first time, which is the same label that Brian McKnight and Eric Johnson are on. So I have a 5-year deal with them. So they're helping me do that. We're going to redo the
your old catalog.
We do all the artwork and stuff for
Okay.
add the song because they thought because they're mostly an R&B label, they figured that doing a version of a vocal song would only help bridge between my instrumental stuff. But it's a little bit rockier, I think, than my other records.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think, but sonically it's good, and there's always
lots of layers, textures.
I always have lots of layers and hopefully chord changes to keep people interested.
Mm-hmm.
I hope.
Yeah, work for me.
Yeah, so it will come out when it comes out. I guess I'm not really sure when right now. So I'm already writing songs for the next CD whenever that happens.
Good. They're behind that as well. They're going to support that.
Of course, yeah.
Good.
Jay wants to do a live thing at the Baked Potato. My manager wants to do a live.
Yeah.
Performance. That might be kind of fun.
You haven't done that yet, right?
We did it about 10 years ago before Monkeys and Slide. And here's the board of Baked Potato used to be right next to where the guitar player stands or where you stand on stage.
Right.
The board, you could make the adjustments yourself. And because I like tequila, people were bringing me tequilas and setting them up. And I knocked over 2 tequilas on the board. So they since taken the board away from there and put it in someplace else in the room where I couldn't get close to it. But I'm kind of responsible for that. But but in the recordings, we also heard because I'd spilled tequila in the mixer, in every song you could hear, just where it shorted out the circuit, But we actually salvaged one song and put that on my Monkeys and Slides record, or one of my records. We put a live track from that performance.
Well, that's funny because most people at the Potato, they're just they want their legacy to have their photo up on the wall. But you've got the mixing board story, which, basically aces everybody.
I'm responsible for that, baby.
Yeah, that's some serious history.
But yeah, so hopefully the record will come out soon, and hopefully it'll be, I don't know. I played a lot of slide guitar on it, as you heard.
Yeah.
But the songs, what they are, we have a bunch of violins on there, real violins we were able to hire. And Alan Hertz mixed the record, who was a great drummer who plays with everybody. He's a great young guy in town. Young. He's probably 40 years old.
Right. Young.
Yeah.
It's relative. Yeah.
Compared to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you my 3 closing questions I ask everybody, all of my guests, and then you get closing thoughts. The first is, since this show is called Making It, what does making it mean to you both personally and professionally?
Oh, wow. Well, like I said, everything's relative, and there's always another wall to scale, after you've done one. So making it, I don't know. For me, I always set these little short-term goals that I tried to achieve. Making a CD, the first CD was I tell my students, you learn so much about yourself when you make your own record because you have to get a song, you have to write it, you have to get the order of the song right, got to get the right instruments, get the right people recorded on it.
The right people, yeah.
The right mixer, then you got to sell it to people. So you learn so much about yourself and other people in your close circle and what you are. So doing a CD is kind of once again, it's like doing a self checkup, from the neck, checkup from the neck up.
I agree.
That's making it. I don't know. Of course, after I made my first record, I went, great. I've made a mark in the world. Then the second one comes on. Now I've made more of a mark. So that all of a sudden there comes another destination, another goal. So for me right now, it's like maybe to get another CD of, I don't know, I'm kind of writing stuff that's real jazzy and stuff that's real simple at the same time. So I don't know what I'm doing, but it'll come out somehow. So my next goal is probably just, well, for me right now is to get healthy. I want to play tennis. I want to play tennis again because that was a big part of my life. Yeah. Tennis is the best game in the world, and you learn a lot about yourself in that game too. What was the question again?
Making it, but you're answering it beautifully. You're starting to get back to the gym and tennis again now, kind of mindfully, right? So you don't want to injure yourself, but I'm really glad to see that your health is coming back.
Me too.
Yeah, I know it's been a challenge.
Yeah, like I said, the surgery wasn't bad, and the recovery was just a long recovery of not being able to, for a month you have to look down, you have to sleep into a cushion, and move your head, and that was the hard part. I mean, and probably been drinking too much this last year.
You're not alone.
Yeah,
it's a lot of people, needed some help, getting through the last couple of years. Can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career?
3 tips. Well, follow your instincts because they're probably what's best for you. Don't take what anybody says too seriously. I mean, because I've seen teachers, because of their own insecurities, shoot down somebody else's whatever they're trying to do. They'll criticize it because they're coming from a place of insecurity. So take everything with a grain of salt. Just always try to do the right thing. I think things you do in life reflect in your playing too. I think your kind of playing comes out I think it does. The kind of person you are kind of comes out in the way you play, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah. And at my final question, at this point of your life, with everything you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
Well, I'd like to say nothing, as if it came out great, but I would say understand other people's. I'm pretty selfish. I mean, I realize that through my life that I a lot of times my intentions are just to please me, and at an earlier age I wasn't really thinking of who I was hurting or who I was thinking of, which is probably true with a lot of people. And the good thing, the fact that I'm a musician, I think gives me the vocabulary, or the audience, or the circles of friends that I can. I've learned what to do and what not to do. I've lost a lot in my life, and a lot of them were just because I was selfish. And I guess if I was going to do anything again, I guess that generally it would be to be not as selfish as I found myself. When I look back, I go, God, I did that? Really? I did that to that guy or whatever. In that relationship, I did that? I did, And, the thing is to be able to learn from it, I guess. So look at it and say, hey, I fucked up. I can do better, I guess. That's pretty general stuff. I think everybody kind of goes that. But I think it's never, I'm not ashamed of it, anything. I just wish I would have done things a little different, but that's probably the case for everybody.
Yeah.
Hindsight is, no pun intended, hindsight is 2020.
Well said. So, Allan, I'll turn it over to you. Any closing thoughts? Anything else you want people to know about you or what's going on or where they can find you or what's in your heart?
No, be in touch. I mean, I do these workshops and I have Patreons, and I like the feedback I get from people. So I like to hear other people's stories, and I can share a lot of stuff with people. I mean, just be in touch and, do the right thing. I guess, I don't know.
Yeah. Great advice.
The Spinal Tap,
Dr. Lisa, any closing thoughts for you?
No, that's pretty much it. No. I mean, I think everybody knows what's right and what's wrong, and that's all there is to it. You just be true to yourself, I guess.
Absolutely.
I like his 3 things, and I like to just do what's right. My mom, when I was young, I think I was like 13 and something had happened. She said, look, you guys are all at an age now. We did our job. You know what's right and what's wrong.
Right. Well, that's the thing. A lot of people do bad things and they justify it somehow.
Right. It's like,
they're smart enough to twist the truth into making it work for them.
Yeah. It's like justifying it, make it somebody else's fault. Well, if you hadn't done this, I wouldn't have done that. It's like, but what you did was wrong.
Right. And it's a temporary fix to fool yourself like that.
Yeah. So sometimes it is that flipping simple.
Well, and again, I'm going to repeat those 3 tips because they're good ones. Follow your instincts. don't take criticism too seriously, and always try to do the right thing. Those are fighting words, but they're words of encouragement and clarity.
And chew your food.
Another really wise but simple and effective thing.
Well,
I would probably say that was your mom who taught you that, not your dad.
I have a hiatal hernia, which I didn't know. You don't know what that is? Anybody know what that is? It's a hernia. You have a little sphincter around your thing that keeps the acid down in your stomach.
Right. Yeah.
And people like me, it like comes loose and it floats up. So it's
like an acid reflux.
Caffeine, and caffeine brings. I can't swallow very well, and I have a tendency to eat too fast.
Mm-hmm.
All my friends know that, and which is a terrible habit to do. But especially now, I had to really learn how to slow down because it would get stuck right here. I'd swallow. It's like when you swallow a pill, it gets stuck right there. It's like, God. That's why sometimes I turn red when I'm eating because I just like. So it's kind of a joke, but anyway, I do have a hiatal hernia. I didn't know what it was until I had it.
Well, yeah, slow down your eating because we need you to stick around, Alan. You are far from done.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
So I really appreciate you. It's great to see you and great to share your story and perspective. I want to thank our virtual audience for joining the conversation. Also, everybody who listens to the archived streaming of this conversation, we thank you. Dr. Lisa as well and Alan, I just really appreciate you both. And I want to tell everybody to stay safe and stay inspired.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Woolman.